Hey there everybody, and welcome back to another video. So on this video, I basically want to go over a few things on knowing when to go full-time as an Amazon seller. Because most people who start Amazon, they do have the intent of trying to do this full-time and make this a living. And so I'll basically want to go over a few tips that's going to help you guys determine when you should actually go full-time and if full-time is actually good for you or not, alright? Because there's a lot of things that when it comes to doing this part-time that aren't mentioned when doing this full-time. Okay, and so it's important to know these things, especially if you plan on doing this full time, because there's a lot of stuff that nobody really talks about, especially that you need to take into consideration. And so hopefully after this video you have all the proper knowledge and everything else in between that will help you determine whether or not going full time is for you. But without further ado, let's get straight into the video. Be sure to smash the like button, drop a comment down below, and let me know what you guys think about going full time. So one of the first things that I would advise you guys know before going full time is knowing your numbers. Okay, you need to know how your numbers look in your business, like as much deep as possible. Okay, like know where your expenses lie, know where your average sales price lies, know where your average profits lie. Okay, especially the profits. You want to make sure you're making an actual profit in your business. Okay, you want to make sure you have your books straight, make sure you have an actual CPA handling your numbers. Okay, Inventory Lab and Seller Board are not 100% accurate when it comes to all your books. Okay, you need an actual CPA to help you determine how your numbers look. Okay, you want to make sure that all your expenses are getting in there, any fees, returns, all that good stuff. All right, so make sure you have that set in place before ever deciding to go full time, because if you don't know what your numbers are looking like, guys, then it's going to be really bad for you when you come to find out that, holy crap, I thought I was making $5,000 a month. Comes to find out that I'm making only like $3,000 a month. So you need to be really careful with your numbers. So that's why it's important to understand them. So now going into my second tip on this, you want to make sure, honestly, I advise that a lot of you are making double, if not triple, what you're originally making from your current jobs or whatever's bringing you your income, right? So let's take, for example, if you're making $5,000 a month take home, you honestly want to be profiting either double that amount or even more, because there's so many things when it comes to running this Amazon business that if you're not very careful with how much you're making per month, it could really, just kind of crush you, to be honest. You're going to have products tanking. Cash flow may be an issue. You have to pay your credit card statements. Listings may get taken down because Amazon just for some reason wants to, inventory can get lost. Like all of that you need to take into account for. And if you're not making the proper margins or even higher margins to account for it, it's really going to crush a lot of your money. And especially when you're needing this money to pay for bills, I mean, it's just going to be a rough spot, no doubt. Okay, so you want to make sure you're making double your income, or at least even more than that. The more you can make while doing this part-time, that better. Okay, because once you transition full-time, then it just becomes so much easier for you to manage and less worries as well. Okay, take it from me personally, who quit a little bit too early in my journey. Yeah, there was definitely, I wish I had kind of stayed just a bit longer. Thankfully I made it work, but for a lot of people that may not be the case. So that's why I preach for you guys to hopefully make more money when it comes to running your Amazon business. Okay, it will not be pretty if you're not careful. So I'm just gonna say that. Which brings me to my third tip. Understand your cash flow, guys. Okay, cash flow is important in this business. It is this business. Okay, you need to spend money on inventory, send it to the warehouses, sell it, and get your money back, and pay off any credit cards or loans that you may have taken in that process. And so if you're not having the proper cash flow coming in, it's going to be a very tough situation. And that's also why I preach making more profits than what you're making currently from your job, because at least then you're able to mitigate that cash flow with the extra profits that you're making. Okay, so be careful with your cash flow. Understand how your cash flow is. If you have loans, credit cards, and you can't pay them fully every single month, then there's an issue lying in there, and you need to figure out what those issues are. So please, please, please understand your cash flow, because if not, cash flow will completely destroy your business before you even know it. So just be careful. So the next tip that I can give you guys is, when you're doing this part-time, you really think of it as okay, if I screw this up, at least I have my job to back me up type of situation, right? But doing this full-time, you need to understand the full risk of doing Amazon FBA. Okay, the worst case scenario that can happen with your account is that you get completely shut down, suspended, all that bad stuff. And so you need to take into consideration those things, because even though it may not happen anytime soon, or if any at all, it's still a 1% chance, if not a bit much higher, that it could potentially happen down the road. and you need to be ready for those situations, okay? You need to be ready. You need to be willing to take those risks, because if you're not, then should something happen, you guys are going to be very, very scared. You're going to be very worried, and you won't know how to manage situations like this. So please take into consideration the stuff that can happen with your business as well, because it's super important, all right? Because if you can understand the risks and you're able to manage those risks, it will make your journey so much easier. And yeah, guys, just please understand them, okay? And if anything, try to have some side hustles or anything on the side as well. You know, maybe start a YouTube channel, do some Bitcoin stuff, Discord, coaching, I don't know, just stuff like that. So that way it helps mitigate the one business that you have, okay? Because most people, they will not be able to handle some situation like that, okay, should something happen to their business. So please take that into consideration. Now, of course, you can avoid a lot of this as long as you're following the guidelines, following the rules, terms of services within Amazon, okay? So as long as you're doing all that correctly, you should have no worries. But still, always be ready no matter what, okay? Because it could happen today, tomorrow, next week, maybe a month, maybe 10 years from now if you're still doing this. But eventually it probably could happen. So just be ready, and be ready to mitigate that risk. Okay, just a heads up, because doing this full time and then something like that happening, yeah, it will not be pretty whatsoever, man. Now, one last thing that you want to take into consideration before going full time, especially if you're wanting to buy a house, maybe get a car, take out a loan, credit cards. Now, you need to understand that when you're doing this full time, you're not under a, what is it, W-2, I believe? Sorry, I completely forgot. It's been a while since I've had a job, so. But yeah, you're not under a W-2. And so if you're planning on buying a house, making a large investment into something, you need to keep in mind that once you start going full time, you're considered an actual entrepreneur, business owner. And most loan banks, you know, stuff like that, they're going to require a minimum of 2 years of you having your history like this. And so if you don't have that, you know, type of history just yet, it may make sense to still stay at your job for the time being until you're able to basically, you know, get whatever you need out. So for example, back when I was still working at my job and I was trying to quit, I couldn't quit just immediately at that moment, because we were still in the process of trying to buy a house. Because I knew if I quit my job and I decided to do Amazon full time, that was going to affect how, you know, getting that house was going to come out. And so I withheld in there until, you know, we went through the whole process of getting the house, the loan, and all that good stuff. And so once I got the house, we settled in and everything. Then I quit afterwards, because then I know I didn't need that history anymore for that specific reason. And so that's just something you want to take into consideration if you plan on doing this full time down the road. It's just something like that, okay? Because like I said, if not, you're going to need the 2 years plus of experience from this. And since you barely quit, I mean, you don't have that experience technically like that, right? So, but it probably depends on the bank and stuff as well. So just do keep that in mind, okay? Just something to keep in mind. But all in all, guys, like I said, do take into consideration all these things before going full time. Because if not, you know, it's going to be a very not dangerous, but really stressful road for you, all right? So please understand these things. Please take these things into consideration, and really decide if this is something you want to do full time. And if it is, and you're okay with all the stuff that I just mentioned earlier, then go ahead, you know. There's no regrets, okay? Because all the stuff may sound bad, but long term, it's amazing, you know. You get all the time of freedom. You can spend your time however you want, work whenever you want, and just everything else in between, all right? So yeah, but yeah, just long term whatnot, very worth the actual taking the leap. So, but if not, then, you know, and just stick to doing this on the side, you know, nothing wrong with that as well, okay? Especially if your job's not too terrible and you actually like it, then do it, you know. You don't have to do this full time either, okay? Why put yourself through the stress of doing this full time if you know, you can afford to not have to do that, all right? But yeah. But like I said, that's just me. I personally don't mind the risk that comes with the business, because I'm willing to accept the rewards. So, but again, that's just me. Again, you have to choose for yourself what you think is going to be right for you and your family. Okay, so just do keep that in mind. But that's all the tips for now, guys. I hope they were helpful. I hope you found them valuable. And as always, guys, I'll see you in the next one. Peace.